And oh Lord, you're beautiful. Your face is all
Well, hello.
I see.
It's good to see all of you. It's been quite a while for most of you. Caught a couple of you last weekend when I was in town. Scott Bond here. I wanted to take a few minutes and talk to you about kind of the special sauce that makes my online classes work, and hopefully share some ideas and give you some input that might make things a little easier for you and hopefully for the students as well. One of the things that I've learned online is that it is distinctly different from the classroom environment, and the more I do it, the more different I realize that it is. So when I'm setting up these classes, the first thing I do is I look at the course description, obviously, and then measure the course objectives, what they are for the course, and then my next step is I look at the textbook. In the online environment, the textbook is infinitely more important, really, than the classroom, because that's their professor in a lot of ways. So I have to look at the textbook, go through it, and see, does it do the job I need it to do? Does it effectively teach the material that's going to be covered in the course? Then I have to determine how I'm going to supplement it or augment it or use it. Sometimes the textbook becomes almost a second thought in the class, and I might just have the students write a summary of the textbook or a critical review, not a summary, but a critical review. Like in my Foundations of Worship class, the one textbook is not very useful and one is kind of useful, and it works best as a critical review, and the other textbook works better as an extra credit project. And then to meet the course objectives, I have to supplement with a lot of stuff. So after I've determined what I need to do for the class, I take a peek under the hood, as it were, and I start to look at how I'm going to break this class down. Now, what's nice is that whether you have a 5-week class or you have a 10-week class, your workload comes out to 12 hours a week. So I begin to look at the reading. How am I going to cover all of the reading in the course? How am I going to break that down? I try to break it into equal segments. That's one of my main objectives in designing a class, is I want to make the workload as consistent each week as possible. So if it's 60 hours in a course, I want 12 hours each week. I've even gone as far as I don't even assign research papers anymore. I have them do a piece of the research paper each week, because time management is so difficult for online students, and it's so critical for their success, that I have to make sure that they stay as current and have the best opportunity to stay current as possible. So I look at all the course objectives, I look at the course description, I look at the textbook, I figure out how to augment it, and I figure out then what we're going to do for the course, and then I begin to break that up into equal pieces for each week. Now, I don't know about you, but when I got into the online gig, I was excited about it, but I kind of had the expectation that it was going to be easier than teaching in the classroom. And I guess if you kind of halfway do it, it is. But if you're really doing this well, I have to tell you that I find the online environment to be much more challenging, and I would say that I put in probably twice the amount of time on an online class that I did in the classroom environment. The factors are student presentations out the window. You can't really do student presentations. You can't have students take over the lecture and do the lecture. It's a great teaching tool. It doesn't work online. I've actually tried having students do the take over the lecture by being what I call the initial poster, and so each student would have a turn to write the initial post for the discussion board that the other students would respond to. Problem was, half the students wouldn't get it done on time, and I'd still wind up writing the initial post, and then it would just create a whole bunch of problems. Everybody would be behind. So that didn't work. So the workload is a lot more. It's a lot more intense, and I find that every time I've tried to employ a shortcut method to make my life easier, it just hasn't worked out. I really just can't avoid the students having to do reading, the students having to do writing, and me having to go through and grade it. Now, what I do is on some writing assignments I don't focus in on grammar, I don't focus in on MLA formatting, and that saves me a lot of time, especially since I'm just a little dyslexic. It saves me a lot of time. So what I'll do when I set up my classes is I'll structure them so that I have a couple of bigger assignments each week, and then I have 2 or 3 or 4 sometimes really easy things to do. What that does is if a student is struggling and they're running a little bit behind, it gets them online. When I tell them, for instance, we have an attendance, it's 5% of your grade. All you have to do is by Friday, log in and then click on your name and type the word here and hit enter, and that's it. And it's 5% of their grade. So if they do that every week, they have all those points for free. I know Professor Williams loves to do stuff like that, and I got that idea from him years ago. He would always start his syllabus lecture off with telling us how, look, you do this, this, and this, it's easy money, and there's 10% of your grade. Well, that stuck with me, and I think it's very effective. And it helps students also, when I might grade them a little harder on other assignments, it helps kind of balance that a little bit and helps keep their GPA up, especially when they're working hard and trying to do a good job. So we'll have an attendance. I'll have a memorization exercise. So I have completely gotten rid of testing altogether. I find that testing for the students, number one, is a temptation for them to just have their book open and do it. Traditional testing methods for open book tests, they work kind of online, but I don't find them to be that effective. So what I've done is I give them all the answers, and I give them a large test, and they take it twice a week. And the students tell me after the 4th week, whether it's a 5-week class or a 10-week class, after the 4th week, virtually every student has the entire test memorized. So they're not having to, or they're committing that information to long-term memory. So rather than the old, it's the last day, I'm trying to memorize all this stuff, I call it the pump and dump, because you can't get it in the long-term memory. You get it in there, you get your test, you get an A on your test, 3 days later you can remember maybe 10% of it. So this is accomplishing the goal of testing, but more importantly, it's accomplishing the goal of information transfer. Well, in addition to attendance, memorization exercise, I'll also add in short elements, short videos that have to do with the subject or the subject matter, and usually they're 5 to 10 minutes long. And I want the students to give me a response, and the only requirement is that it indicates that they watched it. So I know that kind of substitutes for a little bit of lecture time, and it helps the student to have something that's a little easier to do. It's a little give me to the visual learners, or to the auditory learners, whichever learner is the one that benefits from videos. It gives them a little benefit. And all I do to accomplish that is I just find the YouTube video, or I make a YouTube video, and I give them the link, put the link into Populi, and which I will show it in some of my how-to videos, and then they can access it in the class. So those are really easy assignments. You're talking about a 15-20 minute time commitment out of that 12-hour work week, and they get in there, they look at it, they interact with it. They just give me enough information so I know they interacted with it. They don't have to do anything else. So I'm talking maybe 3 or 4 sentences, and they're done, and we're good, and the goal has been accomplished there. So I might do a couple of those depending on the class or how it's structured. The students really like video elements, and technology is just now kind of getting to a place to where we can start reinserting those into the online curriculum. So what I might suggest to my classroom colleagues is, if you have an opportunity and you have a lecture, so you maybe condense a portion of a lecture down to 15 minutes, have someone come into your classroom and videotape it. Perhaps even your setup would be that you're standing in front of your whiteboard off to one side so that you can write on the whiteboard, or you already have it written on, and the student can see the whiteboard and you, and then they can get that classroom experience as well. So it's really easy. Use your Gmail account. You just go into the school gave you. You go into YouTube. Actually, make your own Gmail account, because I think we're not allowed. We don't have the authorization to make a YouTube account through our school ones. Make a Gmail account. It takes you 5 minutes. Go make a YouTube account. It's really easy. A donkey could do it. I know that because I could do it. And then all you have to do is, when you make a video, you just on your computer, you just log into your Gmail account, your personal one, and you click on YouTube and you hit the button that says upload and you drag and drop your file. It uploads, you hit publish, and then once it publishes, they'll give you a link. You copy and paste that link back into your class. It's a short process and it'll really benefit your online students, and you'll find they get a better reaction to what you're doing. Finally, I want to talk to you just about your layout. Now, I've made a video that's 20 minutes long. It's an instructional video. You'll want to watch it on a computer screen. It's not very conducive to watching on a small screen, but it will show you how to successfully lay out a class, or a great way for it to look. And what we want to do is we want to remember a couple of things. You need to go into lessons and you need to set up an actual class. And like I said, I've got instructional videos on how to do every aspect of it to make it a lot easier for you. But you've got to do that because the students need to have a centralized place to go in. Some professors are just putting their assignments in, they're entering them into their portion of the classroom, and the students are kind of having to go jump through that and find that. And that's a problem because, number one, it allows them, it's hard for them visually. Number two, it's hard for them to keep track of things and to really understand what to do each week. The third thing is that it gives them opportunities to submit assignments in strange ways that aren't really helpful to you, because then you have to go hunting for them. So especially in the discussion boards, students tend to be inclined towards putting their assignments into the feedback section, which then none of the other students can see their discussion board post, and only you can see it. So we want to try to give them every opportunity to have a good post, or a good experience with the class. And by putting all of our stuff into the lessons, it will. Now, it's going to take you a while to do it, especially the first time, but it does get easier, and a lot of elements you can actually copy and paste from one class to the next, and that's going to make it obviously a lot easier. So that's it for this video. And again, you probably have a lot of questions about how, the nuts and bolts. I understand that. I'm a professor. I get this stuff. Anyway, I put a bunch of links I've sent to John Gallegos with how-to videos, just walking you through the process with me setting up one of my classes. So you feel free to follow along. And after you've watched the video, if you still have questions, please feel free to email me or give me a call, and I would be happy to talk to you, help you, guide you, support you, pray with you, whatever you need me to do. I would be more than happy, short of teaching the class for you, I would be more than happy to help you. So let me know. God bless you all.